And before we start, I just wanted to also say that we have several distinguished experts in the fields of AI, both from a technology perspective and also looking at how this affects human development. And so we are very happy to have them here. I just wanted to highlight that they do represent their own opinions, so we just wanted to make sure that people are aware of that. We are very happy to call them part of the IEEE community, and they contribute greatly to a lot of IEEE's work in this space. Next, please. So I am Moira Patterson. I work for the IEEE Standards Association in our global affairs team, and one of the responsibilities I have is to coordinate with our Africa engagement, and I will be giving a brief introduction on that. We are very pleased to have a large group of people interested in the topic today, and before I get started on our background information, I was wondering if all of our attendees could type in the countries from where they are based, just to give us a sense of what our participant makeup is. So if you could type that in the chat window, that would be wonderful. All right, I'm not seeing anything, but I do know that from looking at the registration list, we have participants from all continents. And I now see someone from France. But I do remember noticing many participants from different countries in Africa, but as well from the US, from South America, from Asia. So very happy to see that we have participants from around the world who are interested in this topic. So thank you all for joining again. And let me go to the next slide, please. So just very briefly about IEEE. We are a global association with over 420,000 members worldwide. Our mission is to advance technology for humanity, and we have members in over 160 countries. We have over 1,800 conferences a year, 45 technical societies and councils, and of course, a large number of technical documents in our Explore publications library and top-cited periodicals. This covers, you see here the list of topics that it does cover, and our focus today is in the artificial intelligence, autonomous systems space, which is another important space. Next slide, please. The IEEE Standards Association is one group within IEEE, and we develop global standards again in the fields that IEEE covers. We show here some of our key topics. In terms of standards, we have over 1,200 active standards and over 650 standards currently under development. We are an independent global community, and our standards development process is open to participation to stakeholders from around the world. Next, please. Our engagements in Africa are very broad. We have approximately 7,000 members from most countries in Africa. In countries where we have a substantial number of members, they do organize into what we call local sections or subsections, and those sections conduct local networking activities, educational events, and other activities for the local IEEE membership and beyond. We also have approximately 70 chapters and affinity groups on the continent, and those include groupings of student branches at universities, women in engineering groups, and also technology areas. But IEEE's focus on the African continent is largely focused on supporting engineering, education, and workforce development. We will hear a little more about skills development as we go through this webinar. Also to build the sustainable community of members and volunteers. And above, I have some statistics. There is a lot of room for growth, and we are working very hard on increasing our communities on the continent. And finally, there is a focus on IEEE engagement with government and policy development to help serve as a resource to governments when it comes to engineering and technology capacity building. Now, when it comes to standards more specifically, this also means engaging with standards organizations on the continent, both at the national and the regional level. Next, please. IEEE has a lot of organizational relationships. For us, we recognize that it is key to work with local partners and local organizations to maximize impact and really broaden reach, partnering with people and organizations with complementary strengths. So this goes from the NEPAD agency to agreements with many organizations, national engineering associations on the continent. And then with more of a standards focus, you see the logos of the standards organizations as well that we have agreements with. Next, please. IEEE has a number of platforms, and I just wanted to briefly highlight them because you may hear reference to these platforms during our presentations. The first one is the Industry Connections Program, which is a program to help incubate new and emerging technologies. This program provides flexible frameworks where members and stakeholders can come together and develop different types of solutions, have dialogue to understand the new technology area or a specific technology question and determine what is the appropriate solution, what direction should they go in. Should it be a standard? Should it be a white paper? Should it be a different type of a program, etc. You will hear me talk about the global initiative, which is under this particular framework. Then there are IEEE standards, which are developed according to a proven standards development process, globally open and inclusive, and also adhere to the WTO development processes for standards. And that means they are open, consensus-based, and transparent. And then finally, we also have a conformity assessment program which helps technologies transition into the marketplace and does so by developing test suites and test programs that can certify adherence to standards. Next, please. In setting the stage, I want to mention the IEEE Global Initiative on Ethics of Autonomous and Intelligent Systems. This is really the initiative where our panelists today are participating at different levels of this initiative. This initiative looks at the ethical questions surrounding these groundbreaking technologies and really looks at questions that we need to address to make these technologies work for us, work for humanity. We launched the initiative in 2016. There are over 750 experts from around the world who participate, and we encourage all of you to join as well. They are organized into 13 committees that create content and are specialized on different topics. We have organized events relating to the ethically aligned design and all this work around the world and for different stakeholders from policymakers to academia, industry targets, and are really trying to engage all different stakeholders. Currently, the document Ethically Aligned Design version 2 is out for public comment. We have a link here if you are interested in commenting on this document. It was a crowdsourced documents developed by the thought leaders from around the world, and we have already shared it for public comments previously, the first version. Now the new version is out for comment, and we would encourage everyone to take a look and share your comment to help us make this document better. On a related note, I wanted to also mention that IEEE has an initiative that is driving programs related to internet inclusion and universal access to the internet. And I have a link for those who are interested to pursue that as well. Next, please. Oh, and the ethically aligned design, as I said, it's open for public feedback, and that is due in 3 weeks. So there is time to review the documents, and please do so. Next, please. In addition, the initiative is identifying areas where there is need for standardization. And here is a listing of the current standardization projects. These projects are under development, and once they're finalized, will be globally applicable standards. We encourage everyone to take a look and let us know if you're interested to join. Next, please. And then before I hand over, just a word on the context. We are talking today about AI in Africa, and we know that Africa has large disparities in terms of infrastructure access and availability. And I just wanted to use one illustration. This is focused on quality infrastructure institutions, but it shows really the great disparity in terms of some countries have more built-out infrastructures, and other countries doesn't even meet the fundamental needs. And we all have heard statistics such as about 600 million people without access to reliable electricity on the continent, for example. And some of our speakers today will be talking about this context as well. We are, of course, talking about a very cutting-edge technology today, but we are very aware of the discrepancies, and that is part of the context of today's webinar. Next, please. And with that in mind, I just wanted to close by looking at one of the African Union's primary initiatives is the African Union's Agenda 2063, where in 2013 they looked ahead at how to set goals for a 50-year agenda for the continent to become an inclusive and strong geographic unit. And with that, there was one aspiration that I wanted to highlight because it really expresses also what we are focusing on today. We are talking about leveraging science and technology today, but really with the goal of quality of life. It was great to see that the Agenda 2063 has that focus. They're looking at African countries becoming leaders in quality of life, and one of the tools to do that is science and technology. And so with that, next slide, please. With that, I would like to hand over to our first distinguished expert today, Mr. Zvikomborero Murahwi, and he is joining us from South Africa today. Zwiko, please take it from here.
Thank you, Moira, and good day to everybody. It is my pleasure to participate in this webinar. As already pointed out, my name is Zvikomborero Murahwi. I'm based here in Johannesburg, South Africa. I'm originally from Zimbabwe. I have been in the technology space for over 25 years now, where I have taken up various technical positions in the ICT field. I've been a developer, I've been a IT manager, and right now I'm specializing mainly in ICT project management and strategy with a focus on software development projects. In as far as my participation in IEEE and development of standards, I would like to point out that here in South Africa, I serve on a number of technical committees in the South African Bureau of Standards, where I am on the technical subcommittee, which they call ST176 for quality assurance and quality management systems. And I'm also on the STC40, which is for ICT governance and ICT management systems, and also on the STC07, which is for systems and software engineering. And on the IEEE side, I've participated in development of standards for quite a few years now, and I'm currently participating in the P7000 series of standards development, which were shown to us earlier on the slide by Moira. So I'm really enjoying this particular development of P7000 series, as it has a lot to do with what we are here for today, that is the issue around artificial intelligence. In as far as what I'm going to talk about today, it's mainly the background issues around artificial intelligence in Africa. Moira, my slides. So my agenda is to look at the technology environment in Africa, and also to look at the current efforts in Africa in as far as AI is concerned, and then also where we are as a continent in terms of awareness, education, and what we are doing to try and promote artificial intelligence, which we can all see is coming on. And I'll also quickly look at the challenges which we have and how we are dealing with them here in Africa. And I will, like Moira said, point out a few observations which almost represent my personal observations and remarks and suggestions. Now, in as far as the technology landscape in Africa is concerned, just to add more to what Moira said earlier on, it's quite varied, but much of Africa is really depleted in as far as ICT infrastructure is concerned. We actually have situations where it's pretty good, like South Africa, parts of, North Africa, we do have very good infrastructure, and we have areas where it's really bad, you close to non-existence. And most of those parts of Africa where we have serious infrastructure problems, we do realize it has been out of unstable economic and political situations which haven't promoted the development of that ICT infrastructure. We have seen efforts to get around this by adopting use of mobile technologies. This has worked, but the problem with bandwidth, we have not been able to effectively resolve using those mobile technologies. And as you will see with the presentations which will follow, it is actually these disparities in infrastructure which have actually affected the adoption and development of artificial intelligence in the African continent. Now, in terms of the status of artificial intelligence in Africa, there have been a number of initiatives. And like I said earlier on, it has been mainly in those countries where ICT infrastructure is well developed that there have been notable developments. We'll look at South Africa, for example. There are quite a few which are coming up and I think are getting known worldwide. We've got an initiative in what they call the Auto Prophet, which is focusing on machine learning in finance and insurance industries. And we also have Clover, which is focusing on AI in sales within the banking and insurance industries, including the oil and gas markets as well. We do have Aerobotics focusing on AI in farming industry, and then we also have the Stock Shop, which is being used in the South African Financial Institutions for Finance Intelligence Center Act. There's what they call FICA in South Africa, where they want to check on, you know, financial qualifications. You have to be, it's more like just checking on your qualification or your, whether you comply with certain financial regulations. So that is being done through an artificial intelligence application. And then also in Nigeria, we do understand there have been some initiatives where there's been an AI application which is being used to make payments to send money to Nigeria. In Zimbabwe, we have had Econet, which is a mobile network operator there, which we see the use of AI to improve customer services. In Ethiopia, as some of my colleagues are going to explain to you, there has been an establishment of an AI research lab, and there is work going in there in terms of developing AI-related applications. Now, I also just want to touch on education and awareness and advocacy for AI in Africa. What I have noticed is that there has been, yes, some awareness campaigns, some education around this area, but most of these have tended to be individualized or isolated, not really well coordinated. And I think as countries, as organizations, this is an area which we see coming in, and some level of organization and coordination is required in delivering the education and awareness and advocacy for AI. What I've observed in South Africa, like I might have mentioned earlier on, I've been quite active in the education and training sectors here, and I've seen and I've attended sessions where in high schools and even primary schools, there's a drive to try and get the education curriculum revamped so that there is a focus on, you know, the things which are coming, that is IA, so that we educate our learners right now to prepare themselves for the age of artificial intelligence. And it is also in some of the interactions I've had with some tertiary higher education institutions that there is notable research and the teaching programs there which are looking at AI. But I believe that these efforts, especially in the tertiary education, will be driven by what industry is going to be demanding in our respective countries. Now, like in most IT fields, there is an issue of expertise in the field of artificial intelligence. And this is an area which clearly, yes, the awareness is there, but there is clearly a short supply of expertise at all levels. And I'm talking in terms of the technical skills. It is pleasing, like I said, that we see our educational institutions of higher education touching into those areas. And we see initiatives, as will be explained earlier on, of establishment of AI labs like in Ethiopia. And we're quite pleased that those things are happening, but there is still the issue of expertise shortage in this area. And we also see that at this point in time, we don't seem to have reskilling programs for, you know, the designers, engineers, and end users, the people who are going to be using AI. But I believe that that has to come through the education, awareness, and advocacy, which I spoke about earlier on. So there is indeed a shortage of expertise at all levels in the AI space. Now, because of the shortage of expertise and all those things, we do have some challenges in as far as adoption and application of AI in the different industries and fields on the African continent. We also have issues which are socio-economic. And but what is most encouraging is we have seen a wave of political and economic reforms in various countries in Africa. And these are quite encouraging, and we believe that they will really help in the development of ICT infrastructure, which we need for IE adoption and rollout. And I believe that whatever efforts we have got in as far as driving the AI agenda in Africa, we should actually take advantage of these developments which are taking place. And we also see, excuse me, a situation where affordability of ICT has been an issue, but efforts are there to try and make ICT affordable, developing infrastructure in residential and different areas where people live. And we do believe that if we don't have equal access to ICT, then we're not going to have equal access to AI. And therefore, rolling out the whole AI will not, bear the fruits which we believe AI can have in any country or in any economy. We have also seen a situation where the participation of the African continent in development of standards hasn't been that strong. This is my observation. And I would like most of us, those who are from the African continent and are part of this webinar, to take note of what Moira said earlier on about participating in development, especially of these P7000 series of standards, which have a lot to do with adoption and rollout of AI. And we also have a situation where we have to work on removing fears at organizational and national levels, where people feel that with IA coming in, we will see a loss of jobs. Yes, roles will change because of AI, but the gains which you're going to get out of an AI-driven environment would definitely surpass what we have. So we are looking at a situation where retraining of our manpower is going to be key in making a rollout of AI successful on the continent. And then in terms of my own remarks, we all agree that AI is here, and we can't run away from that fact. And the technologies and systems of tomorrow are going to be AI driven. Even in those countries where there have not been local initiatives in developing AI related systems, there is still use via the internet, through the cloud. Access to AI is there and is going to be there. So we really need to take note of that. And it is my view that Africa needs artificial intelligence, and like I said earlier on, some of the key areas which I see it fitting immediately in Africa is in the area of skills development and training, and also business growth, which are key drivers to strong economies. We all know that most countries in Africa are trying to do as much as they can to develop skills in various areas, and I believe that those skills development programs can be facilitated or speeded up using artificial intelligence. And there is also a need for education, awareness, and advocacy campaigns at both organizational and national levels in Africa. We also need to get coordinated efforts with an AI agenda, which may be specifically for Africa, looking at our infrastructure and all those, some of those barriers, and also those developments which are encouraging the development of AI in the continent. We should, as the African continent, maybe get together and come up with an agenda which will help us to drive the AI agenda throughout the continent. And then in terms of what IEEE can do for us, I've got a few suggestions that maybe a more practical approach to making Africa part of the current efforts in standards development. And we all know that without following those standards which are being developed, through IEEE, it can be quite tricky to successfully adopt and roll out AI in our continent. So this is my view, but as Moira said earlier on, IEEE are already doing quite a lot of things in as far as development of technology, which includes AI on the continent, is concerned. So that is what I have to share with you this today, and thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share this with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Zviko, for sharing your knowledge and perspectives. We very much appreciate it, and we appreciate also your call to action and challenge to all of us to think about how to encourage and engage stakeholders more from the continent, and I look forward to a good discussion on that at the end. Now our next presenter is Mr. Hruy Tsegaye, and he will speak about AI as a development tool. Please go ahead.
Hello everyone. Nice to have you here all. My name is Hruy Tsegaye, and I work in a company called EcoClubs, which is a pioneer company in East Africa to work on artificial intelligence and robotics. When it comes to research and development, I can say EcoClubs has been the first private company in East Africa. I also work with IEEE on the global initiative regarding the ethics of autonomous and intelligent system. I am a member of the committee which addresses transparency and the economics and humanitarian issue of AI. So I work with these two groups. And as well, currently I am managing a project called Icodemakers. The project aims to create an African makers community. And as of today, we have more than 28 partner universities in 3 nations, namely Ethiopia, Nigeria, and Kenya. It is part of an initiative which aims to bring the best of African students so that they can have a platform where they connect, where they collaborate on projects and things like that. To make this initiative more popular with African universities, we have organized the first Robo Soccer Cup with African universities last year, and we are also going to have it this year on June. So far, this is what I am personally working, and the company is involved with many AI projects. We have business partners from USA, Europe, China, Australia, Canada, and we have been working on almost every aspect of AI, but sadly, so far our customers are from abroad. That's the very surprising thing about EcoClubs and what we do here. I will try to address why our customers are from abroad, and probably Zico, the first speaker before me, he has also addressed some part of it. He said that there is an awareness, but still it's not satisfactory. And I will address that question deeper. Right now, the question about AI and other emerging technologies impact in Africa is, in my opinion, either misunderstood or misrepresented. Because so far the tendency is either to speak of AI as the pinnacle of science, you know, which might be too good for Africa, or some people consider it just another tool which is not a priority. But this, in my opinion, is very, very far from the real question, and it's very wrong. It is true that the question which should be a priority in Africa is poverty. But there should be an attitude which says that what other priority is there than harnessing technology to eradicate poverty? Because if the supreme question is poverty in Africa, then the supreme answer should be technology should be harnessed, to fight or to eradicate poverty. And therefore, for me, or in my opinion, the question of AI should be a priority. And I'm just, I'm saying this because there are some studies, comparative studies show that the implementation of technology is a crucial factor in a certain nation's economic growth. Like there is a thing called growth accounting method, and it deals with the three elements, namely labor, capital, and technology. And I'm sure many of you know the impact of labor or capital in a certain nation's growth. But technology is often not described elaborately as the first two. But technology in this sense, it means that in the economic growth factor, it is a method employed by labor and capital to produce a certain good or service, and that's technology. So what matters most is getting the job done more quickly and more efficiently. So in this method, you can say that the impact of technology determines how fast the production system is and how efficient and how accurate the system is. Then when you have these two things, but profit comes. It's obviously what's missing in Africa's production system. At the same time, I have an article which addresses this also. It is titled Technologies, the Last Frontier in Economic Development. And I have tried to mention some points which focused on this question, that why Africa is still under the poverty line. I'm sure many of you remember the MDG, the Millennium Development Goal, which used to be the priority set for Africa just 2 years ago. And it has failed. By the way, the MDG has failed totally. And it used to have eight goals, which are supposed to transform the socio-economic structure of the poor nations in Africa, but it has totally ignored technology. In these goals, technology was not mentioned. Well, I can say something about the current SDG, that is a Sustainable Development Goal, which will be Africa's primary target from starting from 2015 to 2030. And at least the new SDG has one goal that relates to technology. Yeah, it is not, technology is not emphasized in the way it should be, but in the new development goal, technology is mentioned as one of the tools. So AI should be at the front line, and in my opinion, among the emerging technologies, AI has a tremendous potential to transform Africa's economy. Obviously, it is transforming the developed world's economy. Reports from the World Bank, IMF, and other organizations time and again proved that the growth of the ICT sector takes the lion's share in the recent economic growth of Africa. So by default, this tells a bigger picture that the future of AI in Africa's economy has a bright potential. And AI is not limited to ICT. It's a very close, of course it is very close to ICT, but it's not limited to ICT. And Africa can utilize AI for two reasons. I mean, it can be implemented with little infrastructures, and its monopolization is not completed. When I mean little infrastructures, I mean, consider building a factory. You need roads, you need plants, machineries, a lot of things when it comes to the infrastructure side. But, well, a genius can build the next Google in Africa using a single laptop. So when I said with little infrastructure, I'm emphasizing on the software side. And as well, it's not monopolized because it's a new science. Everybody is taking its share. Of course, it has been for the past 50 years with us since McCarthy coined the term AI. But even after all this year, it is not monopolized. Many of you guys are from Africa, and you know our trouble, which is the catching up game. When somebody invents something, they will monopolize it, and they will sell it to Africa, and it will take us like 10 to 20 years to figure out what it is. And after we master the process of producing that product through reverse engineering, then that product will be obsolete. And all our 20 years, the struggles in those 20 years, the research, everything, it is gone like that, because the second version or the third version or the fourth version of that product is in the market. But when it comes to AI, its monopolization is not completed, and Africa can take it, can use it as a tool. Zico has mentioned a lot of notable startup companies in Africa, but I would also like to mention some, like where AI has been used in a proper way. For example, AI-guided drone service in the health sector of Rwanda and recently in Tanzania can be a good example. And to your surprise, Africa leads in high-tech, and these high-techs are proper, because so far drones had never been used in a large delivery system. Of course, Amazon and other companies have proposed to use them, and it's still underway because of some regulatory issues. But in Africa, in Rwanda, this thing has been deployed, and they are serving poor Rwandans and Tanzanians as well in a very remote area. And this could be a good example which shows that emerging technologies can be used as a development tool. Another example is the ECX e-trading platform in Ethiopia. It was started in 2018. No, not in 2018, it was started in 2008, and it was launched in collaboration with IBM and WaveTech, which are built. The system is a coffee tracking solution which tracks coffee from the farm up to the final destination. And because of this, the country enjoys a 51% increase from coffee exports in the last 10 years. And Ethiopia even have the authority or the ground to win a patent right. And now farmers which produce a specific coffee called Yirgachefe coffee, their income has increased because now they have a patent right, and they get, I think it is like $5 from 1 cup of coffee from Starbucks. And this by itself has transformed the nation's economy hugely. Other companies, I think Zico has mentioned them, so I will just jump them. And yeah, I think I should jump them because we can mention several companies which are notable, but you guys can Google them and find them out. And I will stick with my two examples. And there are potentials for AI, like to use AI as a tool. AI can be used as a poor linguistic tools in education. I can mention some of our projects which we are doing here in Ethiopia. It is called Yanni 2. It's a teaching tablet that tries to create a software which can teach kids in their local language using the natural language processing methods via AI. Blockchain is another issue which should be addressed in Africa, especially the cryptocurrency aspect, because one of Africa's weaknesses is intercontinental trade. And the intercontinental trade is not performing well because, you know, first African nations has to convert their currency into a US dollar or pound or euro, which in my opinion are the most used foreign currencies in the continent when it comes to intercontinental trade. But the process by itself will create an artificial inflation, and eventually when two countries are trying to trade, the business will be not effective because there is an artificial inflation and price is high. But we can use a kind of cryptocurrency for our intercontinental trade. So I can mention a lot of examples in which AI can be a proper and an economic tool. But the question is, why is Africa ignoring AI as a priority in the fight against poverty? And I'm going to talk about two obstacles. And the first obstacle is education. The tertiary education in Africa has ignored AI. Before I jump to the current state of AI in the tertiary education system of Africa, let me tell you about our own company's experience. Last year, we announced a vacancy announcement for a digital marketer. We announced it via our websites, social medias, and the largest online platform, which is called EtioJob. It helps a lot of Ethiopians to find a job. And it has been almost 16 months, and we have 0 applicants for that post. On the contrary, we announced a vacancy for a secretary, and we got 1,512 response from all over the country, just in 30 days. This shows us something, that we Africans are becoming unemployable faster, because not long ago, even let's take the case of programming. As a software programmer, vacancy announcement for a programmer, they just required knowledge on programming language like C++ or Python. But now, even our company, EcoClubs, demand is becoming vast and concentrated on some specific skills like blockchain or NLP or machine learning or neural nets. So what I'm saying is, the first obstacle in Africa is the education system, and our education system still teaches, the science, methodology, production system from the 1980s, while the world has progressed like where we are right now. Because a good example is the digital marketer. Just 20 years ago, there was no such a thing as digital marketer. But now, other universities have started in the West, but come to Africa, you will not find such kind of educations. The skill demand in today's industry and what our universities teach mismatch. That's the problem. And let me give you another fact. Worldwide, as of today, there are more than 150 universities and institutions that offer advanced degrees in AI. When we check the list for Africa, the result is 0. There is no university in Africa that gives forget the advanced degree, there is no even undergraduate program in Africa which specializes on AI. So question is, how can Africa compete in the 4th industrial revolution while the universities are stuck on the previous industrial revolutions, methodology, attitude, science, facts, things like that. And when I say Africa, I think Zico has also mentioned it. There are like 4 types of Africa. You have the developed Africa with nations like South Africa and most of the North African, Tunisia, Egypt. We have the developing Africa with nations like Nigeria and Kenya. We have the poor but rapidly growing Africa with nations like Ethiopia and Rwanda. And we have the totally poor Africa with nations like Central Africa, Republic, and Somalia. And sadly, In all these sorts of Africa, AI in the tertiary education system is undermined, and no university has started to give a first degree or postgraduate degree which focuses on AI. We cannot promote AI as a poverty eradication tool while our education system is in oblivion of it. So the image of AI for most Africans is no more better than the depiction of AI in most of the Hollywood movies. Some of the universities think it is far-fetched. Some of the universities think it is destructive. And I'm telling you this from my personal experience, because in the past 2 years or 3 years, I have been working with 28 universities for the Icodemakers initiative. And the impression about AI is just like what I said. No, it is either far-fetched for them or it is destructive. The second obstacle is economists and the policymakers in the continent. They have very little information about what AI really is and what it can do. For example, I can tell you this for sure because I have started some motion in African Union. The headquarters of African Union is in Addis Ababa, which is in Ethiopia. So I have the chance to visit them frequently and discuss with officers in AU, in African Union. And on my first discussion, I found out that AI for them was considered as a distant shadow, and no one is saying, you have to ask, guys, why are our products important in the global market? Because Africans were known as a continent of importers, and most of the export is from the agricultural sector, which is a raw product. It is not processed, it is not manufactured. We just grow it and export it, and then we will import every sort of manufactured product. And when we try to manufacture some of them within our domestic industry system, they cannot compete even in the domestic market. And it's because our production system is backward. You hear leaders from every part of Africa saying that they are transforming the economy from agriculture-based economy to industry-based economy. But surprisingly, you will never hear them speaking about technology and its impacts. And the same goes for our policymakers, our economists. And when it comes to this, Africa is lagging dangerously.
Thank you, Hruy. Thank you very much for highlighting the need to raise awareness of this important topic. And when we get to the questions, we've already received a number of questions. We can highlight that more. Thank you very much. Now we are moving to our next presenter.
The next speaker is going to use my connection because she had some trouble with her part. So I will give her my computer. Is that okay with you?
Thank you very much. Tensae, please. We look forward to hearing from you from the technical perspective on where artificial intelligence can be implemented, and we look forward to hearing your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi. So I'm sure everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone that's listening. It's an honor to be here speaking with you. So before we move forward, I would like to make clear exactly what we mean by artificial intelligence so that everyone can have some context of what it is from the developer side. The current intelligent machines that we generally marvel at either have no previous concept of the world or have a very limited specialized one for their particular duties. So the most basic AI types that are that we listen to on the news are basically reactive. This means they have the ability to, they don't have the ability to form any kind of memories or recall any past experiences so that they can improve themselves. But they have also proven to be quite powerful. So the first and perfect example that can be mentioned for this is the IBM's chess playing supercomputer called Deep Blue. Now, what this computer does is basically calculate the number of potential moves that the person or the opponent can be making and make optimized moves that would counteract the moves of the opponent. In this case, this Deep Blue supercomputer did so well that it beat the international grandmaster around the late 1990s. So the second type of machines that we have are the learning machines. Now these are the ones that we often hear about. They are more advanced, and they are the type that go through millions of data points and extract patterns and categorize those. And from there, they can make predictions on which category a new data point is based on, or based on its patterns, they can categorize that into one of the classified points that have been previously made. So a great example would be a program that can tell whether a tumor, for example, is malignant or benign from studying MRIs of both types. It can, you feed it, basically you train it on data of different MRIs, and it can understand which ones, over time that is, it can understand which ones are benign and which ones are malignant. And from this, when you show it a new MRI, it can decide which type of cancer or tumor this one is dealing with. Now, this means that there's going to be data required that is proportional to the task at hand and the level of intelligence we expect from it. Now, when it comes to where the AI can be used in our lives, or basically in the world, the short answer here is everywhere, and it is being used everywhere. It can be in different fields. The reactive machines that I mentioned earlier are what we see in smart houses. The house will self-regulate the temperature based on the body temperature of the inhabitants. It might remind you to restock the fridge. We can also see it in places like smart traffic lights, where it will be adjusted based on the number of cars versus the number of pedestrians, and so on. The machine learning part that I mentioned, the second type, are those that can be applied basically in any sector as long as there's enough training data. We can apply it in agricultural places where we can have it help identify plant diseases from photos, which I'm sure you've heard of such applications from the news and such. In trade, government can regulate the demand and supply of items from data of previous years. So because it would know which ones are going to be in demand at a certain season from studying those from previous years. In fact, as if I'm not sidetracking, I remember a story of a man that used machine learning on the price of items throughout the years. So he calculated the best items for purchase, the best times for the purchase of items, and he would buy, for example, Christmas-related things in the time of the year where it would be the cheapest, and then he would resell them over the holiday season for profit. He made quite a profit turn using machine learning. So piggybacking off of the previous speaker's point on education, I guess we can integrate artificial intelligence in places where, like, we all know that national examinations are marked or graded by software. So it is possible, it might not be in application right now, but it is possible to apply machine learning and classify the results to see which regions are getting lower marks in which subjects. So I invite you to imagine how efficient the teaching process would be if we can allocate our teaching resources accordingly, according to the studies of this classifying machine. So as you can see, artificial intelligence can be used in many sectors in all kinds of ways. Now, the main challenge we face in African countries is the lack of a corpus or organized data. most of the information we collect, if any that is in the form of hard copies. That would make it really difficult to train software on. So where can AI be used immediately is the question I'm most eager to answer. So for immediate use and practical solutions, we have to focus on where our data exists, or what is in our databases. With that, we find several sectors. So first, we have the ICT sector. This, for obvious reasons, is a ripe sector for integrations. Most apps have databases that store information of their users that they can make great prediction on. They can make great predictions on, based from the data that's collected about a user. So what the user may or may not like becomes clear over time. And this is what we see in most recommendation systems or suggestion systems. We can have games that can take a look at a player's scores in different levels, and the game logic will tilt towards the player's weaknesses as the player levels up. So basically the point here is we have vast access to data through technology and hundreds of millions of data generators, which would be the users. And it is highly translatable because someone that has had a history of liking things that are similar to one user can be predicted of and suggested a new video and would have a new application or whatever it is, and have almost a 90% chance of also accepting this new point. And that makes the ICT sector almost ideal. The other is mass producers. These can be factories or industries, and they're really good for AI integration in that after some time of observing these repetitive tasks, the efficiency of a plant can be calculated and waste can be reduced from data collected over some months. Had this been a smaller amount of process or a less repetitive one, then we would need years, if not decades, to do this. So mass producers can be good data generators, and that can also be highly useful to train on. Another good idea or a good area would be financial systems. This is an area that requires a lot of security and has a lot of data in place already. So artificial intelligence can be trained to determine if a transaction is fraudulent. In most cases, daily transactions are basically way too far or way too many for any human being to manually review them. And instead, we can have artificial intelligence that is used to create the systems, and it can learn what types of transactions are fraudulent. I guess a simpler example of this would be we can have systems that are trained on handwriting analysis, for example, and they can determine whether a check is real or faked based on the handwriting of the person. In that way, we are preventing fraud, and at the same time, we already have the data points that are required for this. Another one would be large corporations. These, similar to mass production, can gain a lot of data in short amounts of time because it has already a lot of users, and they can optimize their solutions for each user. This can be cable companies, power stations, telecommunication corporations. In this case, I guess for the power station, they can stabilize the power usage in different time, in the different times of the day or parts of the year, so that the distribution of power can be less wasted and a bit more optimized and easily used. So the general theme in this is that we have to find, in Africa, we have to find sectors that already have a lot of data in place. Either something that can be imported, which means if it's like a manufacturing plant, something that happened in other manufacturing plants can be used here for training as for training the artificial intelligence system. So we have to find something that is importable, data that are importable and used for training to generate data in short amount of time. Or we can use places that can generate that amount of data in short amount of time, which, as I have mentioned, are ICT and the mass production systems. I would also like here to stress, as I'm sure the other speakers have, that the importance of data gathering. This is one of the biggest holdbacks when it comes to implementing artificial intelligence or any type of machine learning algorithm when it comes to the African context. So next, I would like to discuss the implementation, the artificial intelligence implementation aftermath, which is what would happen in Africa after artificial intelligence is put into place. Now, one of the biggest concerns that we hear is the unemployment rate, that people are going to be replaced by artificial systems and will no longer have jobs. So this is an inevitable fact, but something that might remedy the concern is, because artificial intelligence is going to be slowly integrated or gradually integrated into the existing infrastructure, it's not like what most people imagine to be. It's not going to be an overnight mass of people that are unemployed and have been replaced by artificial intelligence. It's going to be a gradual change, and I am sure we're going to survive this one as we did any other industrial revolution, the past 3 industrial revolutions. The second concern is security. I'm sure everybody has been contemplating the importance of this since the Cambridge Analytica and Facebook news broke. So in this case, there is a real concern in that there should be a lot of security in place, so that the gathered data is not going to be used by third parties or any other how yes, things eyes that have like unclassified people that don't have the authority to view this. And although these things are required, I believe the importance of artificial intelligence far outweighs the concerns, basically. Even in case of technological unemployment, we have the chance to improve people's lives, and maybe this might be a pipe dream, but get to a point where people might not need to have jobs. So
thank you, Tensae, for your perspectives on this and for sharing really the practical implementation points. We will now hand over to Damola, and then at the end take a few of the questions we've received. So right. Damola, please introduce yourself and share your thoughts.
Okay, thank you.
I lead strategy and innovation at the Root Hub, a co-working community in the south of Nigeria. And I also work as an associate with Joy Inc., where we build teaching and media products to build happier, flourishing Africans and helping government take issues of human development and happiness very seriously. Over the course of last summer, I joined the Youth and Media team at the Berkman-Klein Center for Internet and Society at Harvard to contribute to the ethics and governance of artificial intelligence for public good initiative, a collaborative effort between the Berkman-Klein Center at Harvard and MIT Media Lab. So issues of human development, especially from the point of increasing our quality of life, values, living life intentionally, intentionality in living life intentionally, and building that structure across policy, across how we do business is so much of interest to me. And fortunately, Africa is rising. Technology, we're in an age where the World Economic Forum said we're in the fourth industrial revolution, and we're always guided by several emerging technologies that guide this process, that are part of, that characterize this development. And artificial intelligence or intelligent systems are actually one of these major technologies that are part of this fourth industrial revolution. So tech is rising as much or better than before. We all know that the future is, things are getting better, society is getting better, and there's this conscious effort by several stakeholders to build the future of society. But as much as we do this, we need to always pay quality attention and be guided by the metrics of human development. So over time, before now, we've always seen nations across board, businesses and nations and individuals, measure human development or quality of life in terms of GDP, how much a country has been able to save over time, what's the overall GDP in terms of material things, materials in terms of cash. But we've seen this massive shift from a look at GDP into a concentration on life satisfaction of citizens and quality of citizens' happiness. And I actually share in the school of thought that actually the world is getting better, but we need to ensure that technology, including artificial intelligence, blockchain technologies, and other emerging technologies, is deployed in interest of the people. Well, talking about human development, I would want to focus the definition of human development in terms of helping people get opportunities to be free and to actually become the best versions of themselves while placing priorities on their well-being. Now, our colleagues who are out of the computer science sphere or who do psychology and health would make us understand that when we talk about well-being, we're not only focusing on the health, we're also looking at mental health being, we're looking at the physical health being, we're looking at several other factors that, for instance, was looked into when the most recent version of the World Happiness Report that rated a whole lot of countries and in terms of how happy people are. So I'm looking at well-being from this perspective, especially how intentional people can be, how it can improve their quality of life, and how AI actually has to do. So it really goes beyond, there's this enormous promise of AI-based technology and benefits, to increase efficiency, to help people leapfrog an unprecedented improvement in their quality of life. But while we are also aware that this is true, and that we are aware of the infinite possibilities that emerging technology, especially AI, actually has, we need to also be guided that we're in the attention economy. And in the attention economy, most of the time, one of the most important things is actually data. So we need to be conscious about how intelligence systems affect our individual happiness and well-being, and funny enough, Africa is at a phase where in the last 2 decades, there has been an increase in mobile penetration across Africa. So there are more people that are getting much more connected with their device, surfing, getting connected with friends, making use of smartphones across board, right? And when talking about AI, I really want to I don't want to take it from the perspective of this broad robots that would someday maybe take over humanity. I really want to I want us to see it from the perspective of, first, the mobile phone devices we hold, to several other things which I would explain in a few minutes. So for instance, last month, we need to, so while this is growing rapidly, we need to actually look into how does this affect, our mental well-being, how does it affect our physical and psychological well-being, how does it affect our relationships. These are a little bit of fussy things that you feel, oh, is this exactly what we'll be talking about in an AI, techie webinar? But these are things that actually make us human. So how do we really ensure that while building technologies that work, we build the technologies that actually make us become more human and much more connected with one another? there are a variety of research that actually shows that as much as we are more connected than ever before, we're also very much isolated than we were before. So, for instance, in the last 2 months, we taught a group of young people. We had a masterclass session on how to prioritize well-being and while dealing with technology. We called it your handle or your life. And the feedback has been overwhelming because it's not about people handling or making sure that they have balance in handling technology, but we must actually put the people at the center of the design of technology right from the start. So right from now, we need, while talking about artificial intelligence, while talking about the design, deployment of AI systems, we need to start looking at ethical design. Ethical design has to really be revisited by user interface and user experience departments in majority of technology companies. There needs to be, I'm going to talk about synergies that needs to actually occur, but these are cases that we need to start taking notes of. And I asked the question last year, August last year, I met with Kathy O'Neill and with a very fascinating book, which is Weapons of Mass Destruction, where she explained how big data increases inequality and threatens democracy. So the question is now, are there weapons of mass destruction also in Africa? And this is actually a work I really recommend for whoever wants to really learn it, because each time, as much as things improve, we're always told that a whole lot of companies do not as outsourced their HR, they have outsourced their job interview things to some HR companies who actually make use of artificial intelligence softwares or AI softwares in screening candidates. So you actually see a whole lot of candidates who naturally should be employed, but because of the data sets, because of certain implicit biases in the data sets used in designing these systems, they're actually carved out. So we see cases where, for instance, in the last general election in Nigeria, after what happened with Facebook and the Cambridge Analytica scandal, a few people started asking questions about, what exactly happened? Are we sure we were not also, are we sure our decisions during the last election wasn't influenced by a few of these things? So it is high time, it's important to know that the design and policy decisions made in the near term are actually very likely to have very long-lasting effects and influences on the direction artificial intelligence make, especially in Africa. Over the past few years, and this is courtesy of a discussion I had with a designer in one of the foremost technology companies, which has one of their arms in South Africa, we've come to see that majority of the AI systems that are actually being implemented in Africa, especially software, are made somewhere else and just deployed without actually taking into cognizance what exactly is so important for Africans and other people in the global South. But it's not always doom as far as AI is concerned. There's enormous possibilities for AI to actually serve social good, public impact, enterprise growth without private debt. I listed private debt as where individuals become the products rather than where our data is actually being invested into doing several other things. That's my own definition of private debt. But we've seen that the positives of AI across the continent is actually huge, especially when you look at personalized education, when you look at what is happening in South Africa, where AI is being used to deliver much more government services. That's e-government. South Africa, Hruy would actually confirm, or Zico would confirm that South Africa has about 11 official languages. And I'm aware that the Center for Artificial Intelligence Research is working on machine learning translation, to broaden citizens' access to government services. I've seen a firm, a small AI startup that started in several months ago in Nigeria, who used data analysis, data science, and AI to map out natural disaster-prone areas. Uganda is another test case where AI is used in preventing poaching, wildlife poaching especially. And I've seen cases where it has been used for disease identification and detection in the areas of agriculture. I'm fascinated that Kudi AI and a few other chatbots that are working in the areas of research, that are working in the areas of finance, have been mentioned earlier by my other colleague. So there is this large, so it's not only about the negatives, there's this large positive things that come as far as artificial intelligence is concerned in Africa. More importantly, we've seen a rise of startups, so AI related startups across the continent. And this is fascinating because it helps in improvement of enterprise, it helps in improvement of innovation across the continent. But while we're also seeing this and we're seeing the impact in education, we need to also pay attention to how this works in terms of child development. You know, I was joking with a colleague some time ago that the way we grew will be quite different from the way younger people of the next generation would actually grow. Because right from childhood, they're already open to several AI-powered toys, you know, that actually offer playful opportunities for children, you know, and has a whole lot of promises to enhance their social skills, their literacy learning and language development skills. But as much as we're doing that, we also need to pay more attention to how does that affect their social skills? How does that affect how they actually relate? So there needs to be a focus on the design, the ethical design, the ethical development of AI, the ethical, even deployment beyond the development, the ethical deployment of AI, more importantly, frequent evaluation of the social impact of artificial intelligence in Africa and across the global south. So with the rise of this system, it's actually helpful to revisit certain questions around our ethics and what is actually acceptable when we relate with artificial intelligence systems or autonomous systems as it plays with our values. So we need to go back to the foundation, the first principles, and start asking questions like, what exactly is fair? You know, what is diverse enough? Especially now that we're talking about inclusion. So what exactly is good? How do we ensure that bias and discrimination is implicit bias, especially, is not? How do we ensure that is not catered for? You know, how do we ensure that? Because there's actually a large knowledge gap between AI developers, end users, and policymakers. So the need for ethical code guiding the deployment of autonomous systems is actually very important. You know, something like hypocritical code. And it's very important because a whole lot of stakeholders are actually working in this area. For instance, Harvard is doing a fantastic work. I'm aware that IEEE is doing also fantastic work. So there is a need for collaboration between these multi-stakeholders who are actually doing fantastic things in this area. And finally, we need policy to also focus on these areas. Africa does not need to play catch up with the emerging developments. You know, countries in the global south and countries in the global north is actually taking this development very seriously. We need Africa to also take this very importantly. We need lawmakers and policymakers to sit back on the deck to see how things can work. Technology should augment our potential to be educated. It should augment our potential to help society become happier, and it should augment our potential to actually have a flourishing life. We have enormous potentials to make this work, but we require that we all take this thing seriously, especially when we talk about public education. So this is my contribution relating to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Damola, for that insight, and thank you to all our speakers. Actually, now I would like to wrap up our session. We have received a number of questions, but we are running out of time. So what we will do is we will post the questions to our presenters and make the responses available online. We also will make a recording of this video, of this webinar, available online within the next 2 days, and we'll send the link to those materials to all of our attendees. So we hope that you will still be able to get the responses and dialogue that you were interested in. I think I heard from our presenters a lot of activity. There are a lot of challenges in Africa with poverty and lack of infrastructures in some areas, but AI also does have the opportunity and potential to help bridge some of those challenges. And with that, I think The other item they highlighted was the need for awareness and for engagement and taking responsibility and planning on behalf or by many of the relevant stakeholders, including academia needing to educate the next generation and the workforce, as well as policymakers and decision makers who need to set the right frameworks and ensure that the growth of AI and these technologies happens in a positive and inclusive manner. So with that, I also would like to encourage everyone to join our speakers today and the many other experts from around the world who have been working with IEEE's global initiative looking at AI, autonomous and intelligent systems, and how they can really be leveraged to advance technology for humanity. The links to some of the documents and the standards, if you do want to review them and comment, will be in the video. So look out for the email about the recording of this webinar. And we hope that many of you will review the documents and share your feedback with our teams. So thank you again for your time, and have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.